Yo dudes, Sam was talking about running some straight pool. Seems that he enjoys it, so I'm going to talk through running a rack or two of straight pool, and you might find something useful in there. And I think I have to stop listening to music because it's really hard to talk when I can't hear my voice. So as you dudes know, this is my break shot of choice. So just playing it a little bit below center to keep the cue ball in the middle of the table. So just like with 8-ball, the first thing I do is do a quick assessment. And this is a potential problem, but the 9 drops into the side, so it's not too big a deal. This is a little bit messy. The 8 and the 5 are a combination into the corner. If I get the 13 out of the way, the 14 goes. The 15 goes in here once the 12's out of the way, and then the 6 will go in here once the 15's gone. At some point I have to get up and deal with the 11 as well. The 14 would be a very good break ball, the 5 would be a very good break ball, the 10 is okay, and the 8 is okay. The 5 would be the best break ball because there's a bit of distance between the 5 and the pack, so you can sort of see the line better, and the cue ball can have a bit of time to pick up some whatever juice you're putting on it as well. That little bit of distance just seems to create a bit more oomph when it hits the pack. So ideally I'd like the 5 to be my break. Well, it's going to be the 8 in this case because I'm probably going to play the combination 8-5. So the 8 will take the place of the 5, and that'll be my break ball, hopefully. But I've got lots of choices, 14 or 10 as well. So usually one of the first things I like to do is get balls off the rails. Because once you're towards the end of the rack, things are much easier if you've got 4 or 5 balls that are just kind of nicely spread out in the center of the table, near the side pockets. Getting on rails, having balls on rails towards the end, unless you've got a break ball and then a ball on the rail here, and this is your key ball to come back out. But otherwise it can create some problems, so I like to try and clear the rails first. As I'm looking at this being my break ball, I kind of want to sort this out as quickly as possible. And I also want to get rid of that 12 so I can deal with this as well. The 10 gives me a good shot to get onto these, but I need to get rid of the 12 first. So I might be able to deal with this little mess now, so I can play So what I'm going to do is play the 3 off the rail and cannon the 9 out a little bit, and then take the 4, and then come down, take the 12, come up here for the 2. We'll see how it plays from there. So first I'm going to cannon the 9 out, so I've got the 4. And that did not go according to plan. I've literally just started playing, so I was supposed to slip behind the 9. But still, it's fixed it anyway. The 4's now on clearly, and the 9's on as well. But I'm not getting down there now. I was lucky, I can see the 12. So, well, I've got that opportunity. I'm going to take the 12, so get rid of the 12, so these are clear, and come up for the 2. Often thinking about where I can reach as well, so I could have played that a lot softer, but I just played it hard enough so that I can reach it without getting my extension or without getting the rest. So I got that ball out of the way, so the 15 now goes. I need to get rid of the 13 as well, so I can make the 8-5 combination and get rid of the 14. I could cannon into it now, but there's really no need. I'm just going to run through for the 1. I'll leave myself an angle to go back up. But always reassess. Like here I notice now I'm on the 13 up into the corner, and it's basically a straight pot, so I might just take the opportunity now to get rid of the 13. again, I've got an angle now on the 14. If I put the 14 in the side, the cue ball's going to run into these and break them up a little bit. I don't really need to do that. Like, it's a bit of a, I mean, you know, I can make sure I hit the 15 and I'm still on the 1, but I don't need to do that, so why do it? Because there's, you know, there is a risk. Like, sure, I'm pretty confident I can play this, hit the bottom of the 15 gently and land on the 1, but I don't need to take the risk when I can just roll through from the 1, come up here on the 10, and then come down and deal with these. I just ate chocolate and now I've got gas. So rolling through on the 1 to come out for the 10. So now I've got those balls out of the way, the 15 goes in the corner. So I don't really want to land high on the 15 because I don't want to come, you know, it'd be nice to just land straight on the 15 or a little bit, just a touch under it so I can just come back for the 6. I ran a little bit too far through there, maybe, or it might be alright. Yeah, that's okay. So I'm just down the 6. Actually didn't play that particularly well. But I can just pop back for one of these balls up into the corner. So, not a big problem. I don't want to leave this right till the very end because, you know, when you're playing a combination, like, stuff can happen. So I sort of don't want to leave that too late, but so I might do it now. Just pop out from the 9. Basically a dead straight combination. I don't want the 8 ball to roll forward, so I'm not going to play it with the bottom. I'm just going to play it with some right hand side to come off the rail and come back out over here. Okay, so I've got the 8 to just stop there. So I haven't got, I mean, really, you want your key ball to be close to the break ball, so the 14 would be a nice break ball now. So one way to do that would be to, the 8 ball would be a nice break ball, the 14 would be a good key ball. So one way I see that, when you move in these last 4 or 5 balls, you want it to be sort of joining the dots as much as possible. You don't want to be using lots of cushions because as soon as you get out of position slightly in the last 3 or 4 balls, shit gets really difficult. And if you don't get on the key ball nicely, then shit gets really difficult. So, you know, really in this last 4 or 5 balls, you want to be getting onto that key ball as soon as possible. Well, that rack didn't go out exactly as I planned, so actually that last shot wasn't very good. I should have played that last shot with more confidence. Because of the cannon, I was a little bit worried about losing the 8 ball, but, the combination, I was worried about losing the 8. I should have played that shot with more confidence and come out for a better shot on the 11. But I think the best thing to do here is play the 11, come down for the 4, and then bump over for the 14 as the key ball for the 8. So that's what I'm going to do. I mean, honestly, the other thing to be aware of is, like, if you're not comfortable playing a shot like the 11, because it's a bit of an angle in there, and you're flirting with the corner pocket a little bit, like, don't be afraid to use a key ball that's not near the break ball. For example, really, I can get on this 11 in many different ways that's going to leave me a good shot on the 8. If I land, you know, for example, if I put the 14 now and then play the 4 next, if I land here, I can bump down for the 8. If I land dead straight on the 11, then I can just stop and leave a slightly harder break shot. If I can draw back to this side, of the 11. Even if I'm not on this side, if I land on this side, I can run through with some side and come out nicely. If I'm on this side, I can just roll down for the 8. So actually there's a lot of ways, same if I get on this side, there's a lot of ways I can get on the 11 to be a good key ball for the 8. And actually the 14 doesn't have that many ways to get nicely. I mean, there are, but in my opinion, they're a bit trickier. I mean, okay, if you get perfectly on the 14 on this line, then you're just stunning up, a little stun draw shot to come up for the 8. That's ideal. If you land straight on the 14, you're in trouble because you're not running forward unless you can cheat the pocket a little bit. Then you're drawing back with juice to like come over here. If you land too low on the 14, then you're going to cannon the 8 when you play the 14. So that's no good. If you land a bit high on the 14, that's not too bad. You can draw off the rail and over, or you can run through off 2 cushions and come up this side for the 8. So actually there's a few problems with the 14 as a key ball. Whereas the 11, even though it's far away, it gives you lots of options for getting on the 8. So I'm going to play the 14 and then the 4. The 4 is an okay key ball. You'd be coming off the rail and probably using enough pace to hit the second rail and use that as a break. So the cue ball sort of ends up landing in here somewhere. But like that's kind of that's a shot you need to be really familiar with. And if you're just sort of starting out playing straight pool, in straight pool you do end up playing a lot of shots like that, where you're playing a shot down the rail and coming off sort of 2 cushions to land nicely on a break ball or some other ball. But if you're just starting out and you're not too familiar with that kind of shot, where you're leaving yourself a bit of a cut, then the 11's probably going to be the better key ball, just because it gives more options for getting on the break ball. So I just need to make sure I get up sort of nice and high on the 4. So I'm going to play this with left-hand side, so I hit the bottom rail and then come up in this direction. Okay, now really, like I said, I just need to get on the 11 and I'm going to have a break shot. I don't really want to be straight, that's the worst result, because then I'm just going to have to leave myself a long pot on the 8. And you want to be as close to your break ball as kind of possible, like not too close, but you know, within a foot or so. So actually where the cue ball is now would be ideal, maybe just a little bit higher. But I've got a bit of an angle on the 4. So if I try to stay on this side, I'm going to have to pinch and probably play it quite softly, leave the cue ball around here somewhere, which is not great. There's a chance of landing straight. So I'm a much higher percentage of just coming over this side, probably. If I land here, that's great because I can just come off 2 cushions and I'm coming perfectly in the line for a good break shot. I can also, if I land a little bit straighter, I can draw off the cushion or just draw straight back down to here. So landing in this area is a pretty good option. The other option is playing it with more pace and coming off 2 cushions. If I land here, I can stun down. If I land on this side, I can play off 3 cushions to come back down. But really, I think this is the safest option, just landing in this area. So my target, I know that if I land here, I can come off 2 cushions and down for the 8. I don't want to go in here, right? So I'm probably not going to play off 1 cushion. I'm probably just going to play, my target is to get past the middle spot, the middle of the table. And when you're playing for position zones like that, it's good to just give yourself like a, don't think, okay, I'm going to hit here on the cushion. This is too dangerous. Think, I'm just going to get past this. I'm not going to get too far past it, I'm just going to get past here. If I get past here, then I've got a nice shot for 2 cushions to come down for the 8. And by the way, if at any point you feel uncomfortable, you know, you can change. I could now just play this 11 and play the 4 across 2 cushions. But I'm going to show that I think, what I talked about earlier, and that I think even if you get the 11 slightly wrong, it still gives you a lot of opportunities to play a good position, a good shot to get onto the 8 as a break ball. So my target is just to play it with a little bit of bottom, a little bit of left and some bottom, and to come out past this center spot. So that's pretty good. So now I've got that angle I talked about. I can just play off coming down, and you know, the cue ball is going to, after the second cushion, the cue ball is going to be traveling on a nice line, and that's ideal because I've got all this space I can stop. So now my pace control doesn't have to be perfect. I can land here. Oh my God, drawing on the table. I can land here and have a good break shot here, 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 anywhere along there. So just check your angle. Get down on the shot, envision where's the cue ball going. So actually, if I just play this natural, it's going to be coming not so much off the second rail. So I'm actually going to play with a little bit of left-hand side just to push it into the second rail and down on this angle. So my pace control wasn't really good there, and I actually widened the angle a bit too much, but as you can see, I had this whole area where I could land, and now I've got a pretty decent shot on a break shot. So when you play your first real break shot, as opposed to ball in hand break shot, there's different levels of complexity when it comes to like analyzing the break shot and where you're going to hit the pack. And probably the most basic level is, so imagine you've got your break ball here and you've got a line parallel with the rail. The basic rule of how to play the cue ball on a break shot is if the cue ball is on this side of that parallel line, you can play it with top. If the cue ball is on this side of the parallel line, you're playing it with draw or stun. But if you're on this side of the parallel line and you play it with top, there's too much chance that the cue ball's going to curl and be heading in this direction to cannon off the edge. Whereas if you're on this side, the cue ball's heading more, instead of coming down like this, it's more going straight into the side of the pack. There's still a risk you can scratch, but the general rule of thumb is on this side of the parallel line, playing with top is okay. On this side of the parallel line, playing with draw or stun is better. The next level of complexity in terms of analyzing the pack is figuring out your tangent line going into the pack, so you can kind of see. And a good way to do that is to take your cue. So you've got your, your joint line or rings around your cue. Take your cue over the center of the ball, line it up with the pocket, and leave about half a ball's width for your joint. And that joint will represent the center of the cue ball when it hits the object ball. And you can use that line of the joint to figure out what the tangent line is for the cue ball, to give you a rough idea of where the cue ball is going to hit the pack, right? So the most important thing, if you get to that next, if you want to try that next level of complexity in terms of thinking about what the cue ball is going to do, what you're looking for is, are you going to hit the top of one of these balls or the bottom of one of these balls? Because if you hit the top of one of these balls, your cue ball is naturally heading up table. If you hit the bottom of one of these balls, the cue ball is naturally heading, well, I guess that's down table, that's up table, but down, this direction. So if you want to go to this level, then you can, use this to figure out your tangent line of what the cue ball is going to do if it runs at if it's a stun shot and comes directly off. So for me, if I stun, it looks like I'm going to hit just the top of the 9. Might hit the 11 and the 9 at the same time, but probably the top of the 9, which makes me feel more comfortable about playing top as well, because I'm not pushing down in this direction. Again, I'm not an expert at analyzing the pack. The next thing you could do, if you want to analyze it more, is to then think about, is there any extra thing you want to do to the cue ball to get some work? So, I know I'm going into here. Now, I know that from experience, if I hit the 11 or the 9, the 1's going to push out. So maybe I don't want to play top, maybe I want to play stun, so that I come into these, bounce the cue, leave the cue ball around here somewhere, and bump the 1 out for the 1 into the side pocket. like as you get more experience, you become more familiar with those kind of things, those patterns that happen as you hit the pack. But for this, I'm just going to decide to play it with top. I'm going to play it pretty hard, and once I've made that decision, I'm going to try to ignore the pack and just play pot the 8. Because if I don't pot the 8, my run ends. And if I'm playing a real match of straight pool, then my opponent comes to the table after I've just smashed the pack everywhere. So once I've made my decision about what I'm going to do, I'm going to play this with top. I'm going to play it pretty hard, try and break the balls open. But once I'm down on the shot, all I'm doing is focusing on potting the 8, as if that's the winning 8 ball in a heel-heel match for your state title or something like that, or for 10 grand or whatever, okay? So I've thought about the pack, I've thought about where my cue ball's going. I'm just going to get down, play this with top, and play it hard and try to focus on the pot. And once I'm down, I'm just going to pretend the pack's not there anymore. So do whatever your pre-shot routine is. You know, find your aiming point, prep yourself as much as possible. Okay, so I just made the choice to play it with top and to play it firm and to trust in that basic concept of if you're on this side of the parallel line, you can play it with top pretty safely. If you're on that side, there's too much danger of scratching in the corner pockets. I play it with draw or stun. And then once I did that, I committed to it, got down, played the shot, and I've ended up with a good rack. So, I'll quickly talk through some of this as well. So, one thing to be aware of, and I found this coming from playing a lot of snooker first, I quickly caught on playing straight pool, and this is part of what makes straight pool feel more like snooker than any other American US pool game that I play, is that when you get these cluster of balls, there's a temptation just to want to smash into them. Okay, there's a cluster of balls together, I just want to smash into them and open them up. But actually, as you start clearing these balls, they end up just making paths for each other. So here, for example, the 12 doesn't go past the 3, the 11 doesn't go past the 12, the 11 doesn't go past the 7, 7 doesn't go past the 15. However, the 3 does go in here. Once the 3 goes, the 15 goes in there, and the 12 goes in there. Once the 15 goes, the 7 goes in here. Once the 12 goes, the 11 goes in here. So you don't always have to just smash, just because there's a cluster there, it doesn't mean you have to smash into it. Sometimes it's worth just taking a look and saying, oh, hang on, this isn't really an obstacle. I've just got to get rid of that 3 and suddenly 2 more balls are available. If I get rid of the 12 next, then suddenly, again, I've got 2 balls available, the 11 and 15. So don't just wildly go into them. I mean, you can, like in this case, I've got the 14, for example, so I could play the 4 and draw back into this pack, but there's no need to. In fact, I can play the 4 now and get on this 3 and loosen up make the 12 and 15 available. So just playing it with a little bit of right-hand side to check, make sure I get away from the 6. And so now I'm on the 3, and once I get rid of that 3, the 12 and the 15 are now available. And they're just going to clear paths for the other balls as I take them out. So I'm just going to gently drop down for the 15, leave an angle. I need to get rid of, for the 12 to go, I need to get rid of this 14. So let's do that now. The 10's a pretty good break ball, like it's close to the rail, but the 1 is a perfect key ball. The 9 and the 2 the 2's too high as a break ball, the 9's not too bad with the 13 there as a key ball, but really the 10's fine. As long as I can land in here somewhere, I can play the 10 really thin and get lots of power to go into the side of the pack. So at the moment, that's going to be my goal. There's nothing interfering with this, there's nothing interfering with this, so I don't need to do any work here. I just need to clear the balls, and there's plenty of, getting on a ball like that as the key ball is pretty easy. The 13 is a great key to the key, because it allows me to just roll up here and then just drop through to the rail. So I'm going to try to get rid of these without having to use these as insurance balls. But I'll get rid of the 14 now, so the 12 opens up and the 15 opens up as well. But as I'm doing it, I want to make sure I've already identified that as my break ball. So when I'm doing this, I really want to make sure I don't, come off here and crash into the 10 or something, because at the moment, while the 9 is okay, there's nothing else that's ideal. So I don't really want to fuck around with that too much. So let's just pop through on this side. And we deal with the 6 then, and then we can use the 5 and do some action. So I'm just going to come between the 6 and the 10. Two and the 9 are a little bit tricky because the 2 doesn't go past the 9. The 9 goes if you land over here, but again, this would be a nice key to the key, so I don't want to fuck around with that too much. The 2 and the 9 both come up here. So, but first I'm going to play that 6 and leave an angle high on the 5 so that I can roll up maybe with side to come inside the 9 for the 15 or the 12 to open up that 7 and 11. So just stop shot. I should have thought about having a bridge over the 10, but it's alright. So now I'm just going to roll up. I'm not going to play it with side. Probably play it with a little bit of check and just roll up towards the 9. I could even bump into the 9 actually. Actually I might, if this 10 wasn't here, I'd play this with running side, but because the 10's here, I'm going to have to jack up the cue a little bit, and as soon as you jack up the cue playing with side, you start dealing with swerve on the cue ball. Now I'm pretty confident I can play that shot, but if I play with check, I can keep the cue fairly parallel, so I'm going to check the cue ball up towards the 9. If I hadn't been bridging over that 10, I should have thought about that. As soon as I played the shot, I was like, oh fuck, why didn't you just stun run a little bit? If I could have got the cue parallel, I would have been more confident in playing a run through shot and actually just bumping into these, making them a little bit easier to deal with, but it is what it is. So now I'm a little bit jacked up on the 9. I can play the 12. I can play the 12 or the 15. Well, I can just play a little, if you're comfortable, there's a few ways. I mean, here, this kind of thing is what you're most comfortable with. You can play the 12 and come through, back up for the 15, no problem. A little bit jacked up over the 9. If you're comfortable, you can just play a little stop shot here on the 15 and stay for the 12 in there. So this is kind of personal preference stuff. And just remember, like, these shots can be tricky. Like, we have these preconceived ideas of what we have to do with positional shots. I think, my opinion is that players have preconceived notions of, as soon as they see a particular pattern, they immediately go to a particular positional shot they have to play. So for example, here, the 12 is here. If I play the 15 next, I want to get on the 12 after that. I see that the 15 is in front of the 12, so my immediate thought is I have to play a draw shot, right? Because the 15 is in front of the 12, so the pattern I identify is I need to come back to play the 12 over here, because the 15 is in front of the 12. But if you actually come around and look, if I play a stop shot, my cue ball is going to be here. If I draw back, this could all go wrong. Like if I draw back 2 inches, suddenly, well, fuck. It's not too bad, I can play the 2 in the side, it might be helpful, but it just occurred to me that I think a lot of players have these preconceived notions of what they have to do with a positional shot as soon as they see a particular pattern, without actually looking more closely and seeing if that preconceived notion is correct or not. In this case, if you have the idea that you have to draw back for the 12 because the 15 is in front of the 12, then you're going to fuck yourself, because you don't need to at all. You stop the cue ball here. Remember, I think also a lot of people, when they think stop shot, they think, oh, the cue ball is going to take the place of the 15. But when you're working in such close quarters, you can't just make assumptions like that, because an inch, when you're working so close to the next object ball, an inch makes a huge difference either way. So in this case, stopping the cue ball here leaves you pretty much straight on the 12. You don't need a draw shot at all. So if I play that shot, all I'm doing is jacking up a bit. So I'm focusing on the 15. Just going to punch down and stop. Okay, so I didn't need to draw back, and I'm perfect on the 12. Now, this is, I don't really like this, so what I'm probably going to do here is just, again, play a little stop shot, draw half an inch maybe, and get the 2 in the side to get rid of it. Actually, I might play the 11, because at the moment the 7 only goes into there because the 11, so if I get the 11 in here, then I've got a little bit more freedom. We'll see. Yeah, I was pumping away too much up that direction, so I'll play the 2 next. And I might actually draw the 2 over here and deal with this, and then once I've got these out of the way. And remember, like, you know, 14-1 as well, like, is a real rhythm game. It's difficult to sort of play as you're stopping and talking all the time, but, you know, there's definitely a sense of rhythm. But remember to stop and focus when you need to be able to identify. So, you know, this is not a horribly difficult shot, playing the 2 into the side, but it's very, very missable, extremely missable. So it's important now that I have to play, I'm not just rolling it in, I'm playing a positional shot. I'm going to draw over here for the 11 and 7, so it's really important that I stop and just give this a little bit of extra care and attention, make sure I've got my angle right, make sure I've got my speed right, make sure I get my position right. While it's nice to keep in a rhythm, your rhythm stops when you miss anyway, so it's, you know, if you fuck up a shot, you've got no more rhythm. So you may as well stop and take a little bit of extra care and attention to make sure you get the shot right. Okay, so even that, you know, I'm talking so I have no rhythm, but if I had been just flowing, it's worth just to stop, take a pause, take a beat, make sure you get that shot right, because you can see that that shot was pretty important. Now everything's out in the open and I've got lots of ways to get up onto my 1 as my key ball and land nicely on my next break ball. So I'm just going to play a little stun here for the 7. Cheated the pocket a bit just because I was a bit straight. Just run through on the 7, probably take the 9 next, we'll see. You can relax, well, you can't really relax. Whew, that was a little bit hairy. So play the 9 next, pop out for the 10, and oh god, no, not the 10. The 10's my break ball. Sorry, you're talking so much. Don't put your break ball on the way to the key ball. Fuck. My plan was to play the 9, then the 10, and then up here. Okay, so I'm gonna pop out for the 13. And now I do want to be fairly close to the rail here because the 10's close to the rail. I want to make sure I get nice on this side. I don't really want to land straight. I want to land above the 1 so I can just roll through. And like, even though this is a great cue ball, it can still go wrong. Like if I land my cue ball up here, now I've got work to do. Like now I can't just easily drop through. So you've still got to just make sure. If I land on this side, that's not great either. So just really check your angle and think, okay, if I just run through here, that's nice. If I land anywhere in here, this is really nice. So I don't have to do anything wild with the 13, I've just got to drop it in. And that's great, now I can just drop through onto the rail. And even though everything's gone according to plan, still, just before this shot, come around and look, where do I really want to be? I don't really want to be here. You know, somewhere around here would be really nice. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'll stop the video there because it's 30 minutes long and it's probably boring as shit by now. So Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.